Irina, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Very happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me again.
Of course.
Yeah,
So, um, practice is a we were talking earlier. It's a very broad subject, and we can go very, very deep. So let's maybe touch on some of the most essential concepts of it. And so, how do you approach this concept with your students with practice? Because I guess this is what makes the difference in progress, right? So, how do you approach this with your students?
absolutely. First of all, we need to define who we are talking about in terms of practice. And is it a beginning student or intermediate level student or advanced college student or even teacher? So it will bring a lot of details and uh, more strategies or activities into the practice sessions. Remember, especially when we work with young children, that they cannot practice by themselves until they turn 10 or 11 years old, because developmentally their critical and analytical skills can be fully developed only by this age. And before that, parents' involvement is absolutely necessary in practicing at home. Otherwise, the child will not be interested, or if forced by parents to practice, will be just mindlessly repeating the same things. And it's very important to understand. I've had so many students uh, who told, and I know teachers who listen would agree, when students make a lot of mistakes at the lesson and teacher looks at them, have you even practiced at home? The student would say, it was perfect at home. I had no mistakes. It was
Mm-hmm.
just fun. And some young kids, even after recitals, when I ask them, how do you think you played? No matter how many mistakes they did, they would say, I played perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important to remember, and if you want really to see the progress, the parents must be involved in practice of young children.
I totally agree. Uh, and it's important at the beginning stages, like you said, for the parents not just to be involved, but to be aware of what's going on in the lesson, so they have the context, right, of what it's, the practice should be like at home too. Uh, because if they just receive maybe like written information, like if you write it down on a notebook or a lesson book or whatever it is that we have with our students, um, the parents might not know what that means. The parents are not experts, and so we need to train them in a way, right, at the beginnings, to and show them how they can support their child. uh,
We also know from studies that uh, children of different ages, even adults, when they leave the door after the lessons, they forget 75% of what was happening. That's why I encourage every student, no matter how old they are, or the parents of young students, to video record on their iPads the whole lesson and refer to it at home. It will eliminate so much arguing from children. My teacher said that, I'm not going to listen to you. And the video of the lesson will eliminate all the struggle. That's
right.
what your teacher. And iPads are so convenient in this way, because you can so quickly fast forward or find the particular place what we worked on.
Right, absolutely right. These are resources that are very simple to use. Like you don't need like fancy equipment. You can do it with your phone too. I mean,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
or with their phone. Like everybody has a phone now. So
And besides, you can't really, no matter how much you try to write down very specific goals of practice, and it's impossible to write everything down. So video devices at this time are very, very helpful.
Mm. And how do you approach it directly with the student? Like how do you talk about practice with the student, especially at an early stage? Because this is going to impact their development for the rest of their musical life, right? So the initial approach is very important. So how do you do it?
Um, when we want students to practice productively, the most important thing is to create their personal connection with the pieces they're playing. If they are connected, if they create feelings and emotions toward character of the piece or the mood of the piece, they will practice more willingly. They will be able to transform and enjoy the process of playing the pieces instead of just telling student practice it 5 times or practice it until you have no mistakes. This will make practice very boring, repetitive, and most likely they'll just learn their own mistakes. So using imagination, creating stories, asking students how do they feel about certain character or certain section of the piece, what it reminds them from their own life experiences, that what will make them get engaged during practice. As well as we need to teach them to listen to themselves with a lot of ear training exercises or um, listening exercises with composition, improvisation, playing duets. When they learn to listen to themselves, then they learn to analyze and search for a better sound, for a better performance. I really like the book by Boris Berman, Russian pianist, called The Notes from the Pianist's Bench. And he says that the student or pianist has always asked themselves 3 questions. First is, what do I want to hear from a certain sound or a phrase or a section? The second question is, how do I achieve what I want to hear? And the third question, have I achieved what I wanted to
Mm.
hear? But to ask these questions, students have to have already very developed musical ear. Otherwise, again, they'll like everything, no matter how bad it sounds. So that's what I'm striving to develop in students from the very first lessons, from the primary stages of piano lessons. But again, parents have to be, with young kids, parents are a number one condition for
Yes,
success.
they have to be very hands-on for sure. You know, it's interesting that you mentioned that because for me, especially with the younger students, one of the most important things that I want to develop in them is the self-awareness. You know, uh, so a lot of the times I will explain something, whether it's a concept, and if it's a complex concept, you know, you have to find the right language to do it with them. But from there, it's about questions. It's about them sort of internalizing the information, and then in a way, like wondering, you know, how this is, and then when it comes out, they have to be conscious about what's going on, right? They have to understand, like, okay, let's for example, in the improvisation, we will not even talk about like harmony or anything. We're talking about just pure emotions. Like, is this sad? Is this happy? Is this angry? Is this joyful? Is this right? So when they play something, then you just ask them, how was that? What did you want to say? Right? So that starts, the brain starts activating in a different way. It's like, okay, now I have to listen to myself, because what I played had a purpose, and now I have to make sure that I fulfill my purpose, right? And that's exactly what Boris Berman is talking about, and many other pianists are are recommending this approach. So it is absolutely, I think, essential, and I think everyone should be applying it instead of doing I call it like the monkey see monkey do method. It's like I play this and then you just follow, you know. It's like that's a very incomplete method, I guess, or incomplete way of doing it. It's like, okay, we can do it together, and then we can analyze it, and then you can make the personal connection.
And that's why, as teachers, our goal is to equip students with many different ways and strategies of practice. And they kind of need to create a bank of ideas what to do, because their days are different. We all have better days, not as good days. And sometimes they just not willing to do some stuff, but they might be very willing to do listening assignment or improvisation or composing assignment. If they have their these strategies in their minds, it will help them to choose the right path for a certain day or certain state of their body or mind, and still spend more time at the piano and become better.
That's true. So now you touching a very important topic here, is like the progress, right? Because they, just like anything, they need some sort of validation. Everyone needs validation of their progress after they start learning something new, right? So progress is a big thing, and progress can vary a lot in different stages and different people, different capacities, different levels of talent, or different levels of commitment, you know. And so how do you approach this and we're going to touch this subject next week, in motivation, right? But this is directly connected, right? It's like, okay, now that you've made progress, you need to validate that, so they get motivated and they will practice more, and maybe they will practice better. So when it comes to progress, how do you frame this to the parent and the student?
The most important thing I teach my students from the very first lessons is not to compare themselves with anyone else,
Very
but
important.
only who they were yesterday and how they improved. We must develop self-esteem, self-confidence in the students, so they feel accomplished. Only then they will enjoy practicing and playing the piano. If they don't feel accomplished, if they get disappointed or frustrated easily or often, it will all accumulate and eventually they'll just quit. So, praising every little, not results, but progress, a little improvement. With young children, using award system like stickers or stars or a little toy, so they feel, yes, they made this progress, they tried hard and they are awarded now. That will teach them to strive for even more, because they're learning from that. It's not like we are gonna just bribe them
Yeah.
or give awards for nothing, but to develop their feel of accomplishment, we really
Right.
want to help them,
Yeah,
especially.
this is incredibly important, and the way that you describe it is great. It shouldn't be a bribe. It shouldn't be like, oh, if you do this, then I'll give you this, right? It's like the complete opposite. It's like, look, you made it. Maybe at the beginning you didn't think you were gonna make it, and now you did it. Look, you're smart enough to do it, and then they get the reward. But I think the main reward doesn't have to be the sticker. It has to be the feeling, and then you reinforce the feeling with the sticker or the candy or the nice words of encouragement, whatever it is that you use to reward your students. Yeah. Wow. Okay, that's a lot of wisdom, and we're gonna open up the Q&A session now. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, anything that you want to share, feel free. And while everyone is getting ready to ask their questions, I will read the questions that we got from our Instagram page. The first question says, I noticed that I'm more focused if I practice at night, but some people are different. What time of the day do you think is the best to practice?
It's very individual. It depends on individuality, personality, and also the schedule of our days. If we had, especially young kids, if they had a lot of activities during the day, I would say it's a waste of time to put them to practice at night. That's why I always talk to parents at the initial interviews about not to enroll the child in too many activities, because to be able to practice piano, they need to engage not with their body but their mind too. Minds, and it's not possible if they're tired or sleepy or hungry or had 6 hours of swimming practice. So I discuss each family, their schedule, and give suggestions according to certain situations. So I can't really give an exact instruction what time of the day is the best. It's really individual thing, but many things have to be considered.
Yeah, and you have to try things too. Try in the morning, try in the afternoon, try in the evening. And like you said, it varies. People are different, and then people also have different moods at different stages of the day. So
Absolutely.
pick. I guess for me would be just pick the time that you have the most energy and you're the most focused in the day, because that's when it's going to be the most productive.
Yeah.
Mhm. And then the last question here is, how can I make my students follow the practice instructions at home? And I think we talked a little bit about it earlier.
Yes, we did mention about it depends on the age of the student. The instructions have to be very precise and specific. Video recordings will help, and engaging the student in the process, making the student an active participant of the process of learning rather than passive observers. That would make a huge difference in their practice at home, because if they are active participants, they will want to see the changes. So I would say these are very important things.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. They need to feel like they're the drivers of their own progress, not just doing it because they're being told to do
Yes.
it. Yeah. All right. If anyone else wants to jump in, ask a question, or participate. We've got a shy audience today. Well, you're more than welcome to connect with either of us, with Irina or myself, through our social media or our websites as well. If you want to know more about this, if you find these spaces valuable, if you want to dig deeper into or maybe go into more practical information, please consider signing up for the Pedagogy Program of the Costa Rica Piano Festival, which will be from July 13th to 18th. And there we're going to go in depth in all these topics and much more. And next week, we will be talking about motivation and consistency. So please tune in. You can prepare your questions in advance. Of course, you can submit them through our social media. And don't forget to follow us, Facebook, Instagram, Costa Rica Piano, and Irina Gorin, right? What's your social media? I think it's Irina Gorin Piano.
It's Instagram, but Facebook just Irina Gorin.
There you go. Okay, wonderful. And so thank you so much, Irina, for your time, for your wisdom, and for your willingness to make everybody more capable and more motivated in becoming better. So,
My pleasure. Thank you.
and I will see you again next week.
Next Monday.
Okay, All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye-bye.